Well, the Czech government, by this time, there was what's known as a government in exile. So the head officers and the president had escaped, and they were in London. So there was a Czech government in exile, and they started the schools so that the Czech children who were in England could continue their education. If your parents work for an embassy, or if your parents work abroad, you would probably be going to an international school in the country where your parents worked, so that you could continue to do your SATs and your high school stuff, so that when you came back home, you would be ready to just go back to your school. So that was the same reason for having a Czech school, where they taught a Czech curriculum and kept the children up to date on what they would be doing had they been living in Czechoslovakia, because they presumed that the war would end and they would go back to school there. And the next question is, why didn't I go to the school, right? Mm-hmm. Why do you think?
You were too young.
Right.
Okay, that's it. You went to one of those schools, right?
International, yes.
Yeah, she lived in China for a while.
Where did you go to international school?
I lived in China for a while when I was in my kindergarten through second grade, and I went to an international school.
Yeah, so you know exactly what that's like. So when you came back, you could go straight into third grade and do your thing, right?
Of course, I've lived in the same house my whole life, so
you've got lots of time to fix that.
So our next question would be: Do you feel that Winton took a stand against the British government in order to get as many children into the country against the British government?
Well, I don't know what you quite mean, but take a stand. He lobbied and got politicians to agree, whereas other countries refused, including the USA. They took a few, but they had a very strict limit. He wrote letters all over the place, as you've probably seen if you see one of those films. And the British government were the only people who would take children in without adults. He worked hard to make them do that.
So our next question, the theme for our project is taking a stand in history. So basically, in order to take initiative and take action in order to get something done, and a lot of the time it's in moments of controversy.
Yeah, where there's opposition to.
Mm-hmm. So how do you feel that Sir Nicholas Winton took a stand in history?
He took a stand by how can I put that? He took a stand by demonstrating that you need to take action and help people without waiting for your government necessarily, or friends, or a committee to make decisions for you. He stood up by himself and said, this is what needs to be done and we're going to do it. And he persuaded his government to do it, and he got a lot of volunteers. And I think his main legacy is to show that individuals can make a huge difference in people's lives.
So according to our research, he was drawn to Czechoslovakia by his friend Martin Blake.
Got it.
Martin Blake, was he working directly for the BCRC to help get adults and families visas, or was he also working?
I don't know. I only know about him from what we've read. I believe he was working for one of the refugee organizations that were already working to help families. And what Nicky Winton found was that there were people working to get adults out, but nobody was doing anything about children. And if the parents couldn't go, then the children couldn't go either. So he decided he could at least get the children out.
So would you say that he took a stand by, rather than letting all the adults go, by contradicting that and actually getting the children out?
Yes, I would agree with that.
This is a little bit changing directions, but what do you remember about the actual Kindertransport, the voyage?
Not very much. I remember, actually I met somebody in 1909, there was something called the Winton Train. You probably read about that, where we did that journey again. And I met somebody there who said, I remember you, because we're all very old. I don't know how anybody could possibly remember anything from then, but I remember you. She said you were very independent. You wouldn't play with anybody. You wouldn't sit on my knee. We want, the older females, wanted to be mothers to the little ones, but I was too independent. I would just sat there very apparently stoically, closed mouths, didn't cry, but wouldn't play. So I don't remember that, but that was interesting to be told that. All I remember is being seasick. For years, I wouldn't cross the channel. I was very seasick. Somebody gave me bananas thinking that would make me better, but then I couldn't eat bananas for a long time, but I like them now. Yeah.
Where was your family or foster family? Where in England were they from?
They were from a very small mill town, you know what a mill town, an industrial town
Mhm.
in the north of England, a place called Ashton-under-Lyne. And they were not at all wealthy. In fact, they were quite poor. They lived in a very small house, called a 2 up, 2 down. And because there were only 2 bedrooms, their own daughter, who was 16, and who was already out working, because at that time, when you were 16, that was the end of your schooling, she went to live with her grandmother down the street so that we could have the other bedroom.
We got this done. So, do you know why England was the only country that allowed immigrant refugees?
I don't think anybody knows why they had a generous and compassionate worldview, and other places didn't.
So, even though this is a bit relevant to that, I not know if you would have an answer to this, but why were English government officials in the late 1930s so sure that a war wouldn't break out that they didn't take the whole process seriously?
They were optimistic. They thought they could negotiate with Hitler, and that he wouldn't be as bad as people thought he was going to be, and they were wrong.
But wouldn't that perspective have changed after they signed the Munich Agreement and Hitler went against it and invaded all of Czechoslovakia?
Well, who knows? I don't have an answer for that.
Why do you think Sir Nicholas Winton stayed silent when he could have talked about his kinder transport that he set up?